film you are about to see represents a significant breakthrough in the advancing science of the motion picture. You are about to witness history in the making.
I first dropped acid when I was 18. I was over at these people's house one night. This guy I went to school with was over there and asked me if I wanted to try some acid. I had read about it in the newspapers and heard a few friends talk about it, so I was curious. I was pretty jacked up on marijuana, so I decided to try it, and I dropped it.
As we see it, the typical psychiatric ward, LSD is certainly much more than a mere fad. Right now we have over a dozen people hospitalized because of acute symptoms resulting directly from their taking LSD. What is LSD? How does it work? When did it all begin?
It all began in a laboratory very much like this one. In 1938, Dr. Albert Hoffman in Switzerland was looking for new drugs in the treatment of migraine headaches. He had been studying substances that came from the molds that grow on rye plants. Now, it turned out that these substances were of no use in the treatment of migraine headaches, but subsequent investigation showed that they are very fascinating indeed in the changes that they produce in our mental state.
Changes in mental states, it turns out, was precisely what the United States Central Intelligence Agency was interested in. As these declassified documents show, beginning as early as 1953, under the codename MK-Ultra, the CIA was beginning to experiment with LSD as a mind control drug. In particular, they were interested in the effects of LSD on an unwitting subject in a real-life setting. To that end, MK-Ultra operatives started spontaneously dosing themselves and other agents with the drug. Things got so out of hand that a memo was circulated among the CIA staff. This memo stated, in part, that they did not recommend testing LSD in the Christmas punch bowls usually present at the Christmas office parties.
So we tripped down to Market Street, and I decided to buy a hot dog. I put the hot dog up to my mouth, and somebody started screaming. I didn't know what was happening, so I looked up at my friend Terry and said, "Did you hear that? Didn't you hear someone scream?" He said no. I got the hot dog up to my mouth again, and I was ready to bite, and the scream got louder. And I looked down at the hot dog, and there was a face on him. Eyes, nose, a mouth. I had put the ketchup to where it looked like his hair. And he started telling me that I couldn't eat him. That he had a wife and 7 kids at home to support. And I stood there with this hot dog and asked Terry, "Do you know this hot dog is talking to me?"
This girl is obviously acutely disturbed. She will be in the hospital for a few weeks or a few months. Some others who take LSD will have even more tragic freakouts. And there's no way to tell which ones these will be. Some forget what height means, and in a turned-on or euphoric state, step or attempt to fly from cliffs and high windows with real-life, permanent, non-psychedelic results.
One of the first people to ever experience something with real-life, permanent, non-psychedelic results was Dr. Frank Olson. Dr. Olson was a U.S. Army scientist who specialized in bacteriological warfare research, most specifically anthrax. In November of 1953, Olson and a group of CIA and Army technicians gathered at a location in remote Maryland for a work-related getaway. At one point during the meeting, a high-ranking CIA official dosed the gathered scientists with LSD. Whereas most of the participants enjoyed the experience, Olson's behavior was completely altered. He became sullen and withdrawn, and seemed to experience remorse at the type of work he was doing. His supervisor sent him to a CIA psychiatrist in New York, who recommended that Olson be put into a sanatorium. On his last night in Manhattan, Olson and Dr. Robert Lashbrook, the CIA agent responsible for watching out for him, checked into the Statler Hilton Hotel. Sometime during the night, Lashbrook woke to the sound of breaking glass. Olson had thrown himself out the window to the street 10 floors below. The matter was investigated by the CIA, who determined that Olson had committed suicide.
Finally, I decided I was just hallucinating, so I put it in my mouth and bit down. It screamed so loud that you could hear it all over town, so I had to throw it on the ground and step on it. And I was jumping on this hot dog in the middle of Market Street. I realized that I had murdered it. And I took off screaming down the street, scared.
Also running scared at this time was the CIA. In 1975, the Rockefeller Commission, appointed by President Gerald Ford, seen here at Wright, started conducting an investigation of some of the alleged misdeeds of the CIA. Some of the first excesses of the agency to come to light were the MK-Ultra experiments and the death of Frank Olson. Olson's family, unaware of the true circumstances surrounding Frank's demise, was shocked. In response, the White House offered the Olsons an apology and a monetary settlement. The family was even brought to the White House to meet with Gerald Ford, seen here again on Wright. Prior to the Olsons' arrival in Washington, a memo was circulated among the White House staff outlining their strategy in dealing with the Olson case. The memo was addressed to staff member Donald Rumsfeld. The memo's author, Dick Cheney. Frank Olson's son Eric had lingering doubts about the circumstances surrounding his father's death. In 1994, he had his father's body exhumed and autopsied by a team of forensic scientists. One of the first things the medical team noticed was the presence of a severe hematoma, or hemorrhage, on the temple of Frank Olson's skull, a wound some of the doctors agreed that was there before Olson's fall out of the Statler window. The team's leader, Dr. James Starrs, wrote in his report, "It is my view and a number of my team members that it was homicide." The film Case Study LSD was produced by the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation. Another of Lockheed's products was the U-2 spy plane, which they built under contract for the CIA.
Well now, you've heard from both sides of the question. But what you do with your life is up to you. You have the choice to have the courage to see and deal with the world for what it really is. Far, far from perfect, but for you and for me, the only one there is.